Do you believe you can still win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy? Do you still believe this guy is hit?
Can we acknowledge this? If I removed Brock Purdy from the equation, or any quarterback from the equation, building a Super Bowl roster is really hard. It just is.
Today, a doubleheader, Raiders and Falcons, Vikings and Bears, and we had Thursday Night Football with the Rams and the Niners, which is awful. That was 12-6. Last night, you get the Raiders and Falcons and I believe the Raiders had a shot to tie the game or take the lead. I know Mark Davis and Tom Telesco were in the suites. Tom Telesco, the GM of the Raiders, said, do not win this game. Mark Davis said, please lose it. They lost 15-9. It was ugly. Minnesota rolls over the Chicago Bears. The Bears are cooked, and Caleb Williams is just lost right now. That offense is lost. But just looking at the quarterback scene last night. Now, Caleb, I'm going to give him a pass. Shaska, as I say, good morning, everybody out there. Get off their graveyard shift. You know, all the overnight dancers, firefighters, cops, etc. Hopefully you're doing some good Christmas shopping and drive safe. But Caleb Williams, I'm going to give him a pass because of the coaching situation. Let's see what he does next year with those weapons, and maybe they, improve their offensive line. So I was really focused on Darnold, Kirk Cousins, and whoever the hell the Raiders were playing. Now, we know the Raiders need a quarterback. That's for sure. They're getting a quarterback, whether it's Shador, Cam Ward, who knows? Maybe they're trying to throw some money at Sam Darnold. I have no idea. They need a quarterback. Kirk Cousins is cooked. So if Kyle Shanahan was watching that film and there's any second thoughts about Brock Purdy or whatnot, going to Kirk Cousins is not the answer. That's for sure. I think we can cross his name off the list.
Kirk Cousins.
You know who he looked like to me last night?
Matt Ryan?
No, I was going to say Trent Dilfer in a Niner uniform. Like, just can't move, can't throw. The team is scared to throw the ball, even though I felt like they had a couple of weapons, out there, and Bijan's an absolute stud.
He's gun shy.
I'm watching both those games, and it's 1/8 of the league, essentially. 4 teams playing last night, and your takeaway was quarterbacks, and mine was absolutely like just looking at through the quarterback prism and also the head coach prism. All the criticisms, myself included, when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, I'm saying, I saw 3 coaches last night that don't belong in the league.
No. Raheem Morris. He's a coordinator.
He's a coordinator. I'm watching whatever the hell Antonio Pierce is doing. Nice guy, rah, dude. He doesn't know what he's doing on offense.
No.
Literally every single punt was going to get blocked last night.
He has no idea what he's doing, period. We've heard the rumors about practice not being organized. I mean, the day one, we saw it last year, was like, oh, they're going to take the bait with Antonio Pierce, and they're going to just bypass Jim Harbaugh.
Absolutely.
I would have threw the kitchen sink at Jim Harbaugh.
And like, looking at it through a Niner prism, I understand we have higher standards. Believe me, I get that. I understand, the way Nike operates isn't the way a startup shoe company is going to operate, right? There are standards at Nike, right? I understand that. And the Niners have standards right now. But how can you watch the rest of the league as you see, like, Sam Howell coming in for Geno Smith at the end of that game and sit here and say that, A, the quarterback is garbage or stinks, quote unquote, and B, that the head coach has no business being the head coach of the 49ers moving forward. I think both of those things are dismissed when you take off your Niner lenses and you just watch the rest of the league objectively. There are so many bad teams, bad coaches, bad quarterbacks. Does that mean I throw $1 billion at the head coach and give him autonomy for the rest of his career? No. Does that mean I give the quarterback a blank check? No. But I'm saying, like, I know our season's been down, and I know it's bad, and I know it's ugly. At least we aren't those teams.
No.
They look hopeless.
No, Shanahan. I mean, the rhetoric with Kyle Shanahan. Like, the fact that Diana Rossini over the weekend had to write a report that Shanahan's seat is not even close to being hot. I'm like, yeah, duh. Anybody with the brain would understand that Shanahan's not going anywhere, nor should he. We see what's happening this year. Yeah. Has he been at his best? No.
No.
As Steve Young said, he needs to reinvent himself. Well, we'll explore that avenue on how he reinvents himself, and I got some ideas on that. We all think they need more explosiveness on the outside and a little more speed, and you got to stop being so predictable in the red zone or whatnot. But Raheem Morris, I'm not mad at him getting another chance. He did a great job with the LA Rams as their defensive coordinator, but that organization, Arthur Blank and the owner, threw the blank check at Kirk Cousins, and then you turn around and draft Michael Penix Jr. This makes no sense. So now you put yourself behind the 8 ball to where if you try to release or move on from Kirk Cousins, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So that didn't make any sense. And they passed up on Bill Belichick. They passed up Bill Belichick. He wanted that job. They said no to Bill Belichick. So that's the Atlanta. And Atlanta's going to be Atlanta forever as long as Arthur Blank is the owner. He just gets in the way. And I like the guy. I really do. But he gets in there. He gets in his own way. Minnesota's in a good spot with Kevin O'Connor. I like that guy a lot. I like him a lot. I like his offense. I like his design. You see what he's doing with that offense. You see what he's doing with that defense and Brian Flores. They're in a good spot. They're a sleeper team in the NFC, especially if they get home field advantage and they get to play their games inside that stadium. Ooh-wee, that'd be tough. But those other three teams, like the Raiders, are going to go through another facelift.
I know.
Who wants that job? I mean, you look at the talent on the team. Oh, my gosh.
Well, so, like, we've had people call in, and again, I know that this is like a small drop in the overall bucket of 49er fandom, but people are like, Brock's not an NFL quarterback. No, Desmond Ritter's not an NFL quarterback, right? That's a guy who had like 90 yards passing, and 90 yards of total offense. Forget passing through like basically 3.5 quarters. Mm. Brock Purdy is a functional starting quarterback in the NFL. I think he's good. If you think he's middle of the pack, fine, whatever. And I understand he's never going to be Josh Allen or Lamar. Yeah, we get that. We understand that, but you can still win a lot of games with them. And this kind of comes back into my like Dak Prescott rhetoric where I hear a lot of people, Dak is terrible. No,
he's not terrible.
Dak's a good player.
They're a top 5 offense three years in a row, and they've had really no running game.
They've won that division multiple times during his tenure. They are a double-digit win team when he plays, essentially, right? And look, is there a ceiling in the playoffs? Sure. But you can make a lot of money and be wildly profitable as an organization going to the playoffs year after year after year. So I just think the way we talk about these quarterbacks, and I know I'm guilty at times of this, is just absurd. And then I think about confidence, Bonte, and I don't know if Brock's got the ultimate confidence currently going, but I look at someone like Sam Darnold, and he feels very empowered, and he's got a lot of confidence in what he's doing right now. And I think confidence is an intoxicating drug for an athlete.
I thought you were going to keep going there.
No, it's just going on. I'm thinking about guys that don't have confidence. Like Pajemski doesn't have any confidence right now.
I don't look at Brock Purdy and say, man, that's not a confident quarterback.
I think he's lost a little. That's just my interpretation.
I think he's battling something with the injuries, with the shoulder and the elbow. And then there's a trust factor. When you got Ricky Pearsall, who you weren't able to build a rapport with Ricky Pearsall in training camp for multiple reasons. Deebo Samuel's obviously lost something there. And when your receivers, you don't trust your wide receivers to compete for balls, to compete for contest 50-50 balls like Jawad Jennings, you lose some trust. So, a little confidence in the way that, I don't know if I can throw the ball to this guy. I'm not confident he's going to come down with it. I'm not confident he's going to get wide open. So then, maybe that confidence does affect your mental psyche to say, I'm just a little gun shy right now because I don't trust what I have out there. I trust George Kittle. I trust Jawan, but I don't trust the other assets that I have right now. I don't trust our running game to get going here, to trade out yards without Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason. I don't trust my offensive line to hold up for 3 to 4 seconds to give me the proper time to dissect the defense and process everything. So, there's a little slippage there, but I think Brock Purdy, from what I've seen from him throughout his career, the guy can handle adversity. The guy can handle the tough times. And so I just think it's when we focus on the money and what he's going to get, to me, that's just silly stuff. You're going to roll back Shanahan and Brock Purdy. The question I have for everybody is, do you still believe he's a franchise quarterback? Because you could sign him for another year or two and have opt-outs in his contract, but do you think he's a long-term solution? And that's where we waver back and forth. Again, we have the golden four with Allen, Burrow, Lamar, and Patrick Mahomes. We know those guys are just absolute studs. Justin Herbert's trying to enter that category, right? He's trying to enter that category. Jalen Hurts is trying to enter that category. But right now, when you look around the league, I mean, do you really want to move? What's going to be available out there in the open market? It could be a Kirk Cousins. It could be a Sam Darnold. Are you really better off with Sam Darnold as opposed to Brock Purdy? I don't know. I
just think the one-off for Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I don't.
Does it work with us?
Do you want to go through that once again? We all talk about out here we're tired of the musical chairs at the quarterback position. Can you sustain long-term success as a franchise if you continue to flip the deck at the most important position in all of sports? And I don't think you can.
Very few teams can pull off what Bill Parcells did with Hostetler winning a Super Bowl, coming in for an injured Phil Simms, or do what Joe Gibbs did, winning with 3 different quarterbacks, right? That's really hard. It's really hard to do that, to win big. And that's, I think, part of what makes Andy Reid such a intriguing head coach in the history of the game is that he's won with so many different quarterbacks. Right. It's really hard.
A division title here and there, but like going into the playoffs
major.
and winning.
We're talking about winning major. It's
winning
very
major.
difficult.
Yes.
I mean, again, there's a handful of guys, so I guess when you say franchise quarterback, I guess my question is, what do you mean by that? Do you mean
franchise quarterback? Is he the guy for the next 4 years? Is he the guy you're willing to sign up for? So then he would have, a 7-year run as a starting quarterback? I find that hard to believe just because the league doesn't have a lot of those guys. I mean, do you believe this is a guy for the next 3 years? Hey, we don't have to worry about the quarterback. I'll ask a better question. Are you worried about the quarterback position in San Francisco? Does that position need to be upgraded?
Here's what I would say.
If he's already a top 7, top 8 quarterback, or even top 10, it's really hard to upgrade past the golden 4.
Yeah, but can't we also see that these things are very cyclical? And Kirk Cousins had it a couple years ago. Injuries, gone. I think of Jimmy Garoppolo. We spent so much time talking about franchise quarterback.
Do you really believe Kirk Cousins had it, though? We've always been down on Kirk.
No, you and I have. But he was a good player. He was a solid player. Was he overpaid? Probably. You know what I mean? Was he overrated? Probably. But he was a really good player. You can win a lot of games with him. His team was a fringe playoff team for every year. It was some dysfunctional organization stuff in Washington. Was he not?
Nah, I don't. I mean, they were okay.
So you just never thought he was good?
I've never been a Kirk. You know me. I've never been. Player. He's okay, but I never thought, boy, let me give the keys to Kirk Cousins. He's going to win you a lot of football games. No, I never subscribed to that with Kirk. Never. That's just me though.
Look, I think the Brock thing.
And let me add something to Kirk Cousins real quick. And I think the reason why Kirk Cousins got the bag and why people maybe have a different view of him, I think quarterback position, contrary to what most people think, I think it's at an all-time worst collectively. There's so many bad quarterbacks in the league. So many bad quarterbacks.
There's always been bad.
But yeah, right now it's the golden 4, and then it's you flip the coin. You never know what you're going to get on a weekly basis from a lot of these guys. So the bottom half of the quarterback position in this league, it's just the New York Giants. Oh, my God. You go watch one of their games, you're like, dear God, what am I watching here? What am I watching?
But that's what the Niners went through for, a long stretch.
Exactly. But I'm saying collectively in the league, not just a singular team, because I know that's why it's just so funny that people want to move off of Brock Purdy so fast because of what we did go through with the 49ers. But overall in the league, Cleveland, they're playing musical chairs. Jameis not the answer. DTR is not the answer. So you have so many. I don't even know if Russell Wilson's going to be a long-term solution at Pittsburgh. Who the hell knows what Pittsburgh's going to do?
I think
the New York Jets. I don't know if they're Drake May. So overall, I'm just thinking, do you really want to move off of Brock Purdy? Because what are the better options?
Well, I don't think anyone wants to just move off of him without options and whatnot. But I do think is my confidence in him at a low point? Probably. Would I insulate myself with bringing in somebody behind him, either to tutor, under his tutelage, as a draft pick, or some random guy, hypothetically, we've heard Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Would I bring a reclamation project in? Yeah, I probably would. I think it worked out for Sam Darnold in the sense that he got a chance to see how to train like a professional behind Brock Purdy and what stability does for an individual. And then going back to the confidence thing, I do think his confidence was shot. Playing on those New York Jets teams were just, it's a nightmare. It's a disaster. You're seeing it play out with Caleb Williams. I don't even know if Peyton Manning would survive with the situation that's going on with Chicago right now. So I still think that he's the guy for right now. But what I'm learning in the NFL is, to your point, I think there's only a handful of guys that are going to spend a decade with their team under center. I mean, Russell Wilson, I thought was going to be a 15 to 20-year Seattle Seahawk.
He was there for damn near a decade, though. He had a hell of a run in Seattle. Hell of a run.
I know, but if I would have told you in 2018, that he wouldn't be finishing his career out in Seattle, you'd find that hard to believe.
I mean, it happens in pro sports, right? I mean, hell, Joe Namath didn't end up with the New York Jets. He didn't finish his career with the Jets. Johnny Unitas didn't finish his career with the Baltimore Colts. Hell, right here in this market. Joe Montana didn't finish with the San Francisco 49ers. Things happen here.
Yeah, but when we say franchise quarterback, I think that there's an assumption approximately 7 to 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So, if you say that to me with Brock Purdy, I'm going 1 to 2 years, and then I'll reassess where I'm at. I thought Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be a 7 to 10-year starter for the 49ers, and I was wrong on that one. I thought Colin Kaepernick was going to be a 7 to 10-year starter for the 49ers. I was wrong on that one. I thought Alex Smith, when he was initially drafted, was going to be a 7 to 10. I mean, he couldn't even be a starter 4 years in. So I think that things dramatically shift, and you almost have to take like in 2-year increments.
Here's a question. And I'm going to steal this from Zach. I believe he's from South Carolina. Shout out to South Carolina. Comcast Business Text Line. Morning, fellas. Zach from SC. The idea of moving off Purdy is just silly. The question is, can we win a Super Bowl with him? And I think everyone agrees we can. Talk of how he plays when things aren't perfect is also silly. Look at Kansas City right now. Pat is playing its worst ball with limited receivers, but the defense is amazing. If he was a first-round pick, the perspective would be different. So I guess that is a question. Can you win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy?
I have more doubts today than I ever have. I'm not saying that he can't. I never thought Nick Foles could win a Super Bowl. I would never, just absolutely never, like Desmond Ridder will never win a Super Bowl. That I feel pretty confident in saying, for example. But like,
not starting anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I don't
think he's going to be
I don't think he's an NFL player.
He's going to be out of the league.
Yeah, but like I feel pretty confident saying Desmond Ridder will never win a Super Bowl. I have more doubts on Brock Purdy winning a Super Bowl today than maybe at any point ever. But I also said the same thing about Sam Darnold. And what did they win? 12 games right now? They're 12 and whatever, 2? I never want to say never, but I have more doubts now than I've ever had.
Spinoni 11, you believe that Brock Purdy can win a Super Bowl? I mean, we saw this guy take Mahomes. I mean, they went to overtime and lost.
Yeah, he can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree.
I echo that belief.
I mean, you got to an NFC Championship game. You got deep into the playoffs. We see him rally in playoff games.
So you think he can win a Super Bowl?
I think he can win a Super Bowl, but the team, obviously, the defense has to be a little bit better. And, he's not the perfect quarterback. He's not. But can he function at a high level with an offense with playmakers? Absolutely.
So let me do this exercise, and I'm just curious. Like, do you think Jared Goff can win you a Super Bowl?
I'm not 100% sure Jared Goff will win a Super Bowl. But I do think with those weapons, with this team right now, I don't think Detroit's going to the Super Bowl. But Jared Goff is capable of winning the Super Bowl. I know the other guy's like, boy, I don't think Detroit's winning it this year, but I do believe Jared Goff is good enough to help his team win the Super Bowl. The guy can make all the throws.
So then why do you view him different than, let's say, Dak Prescott?
I don't view him different. I don't view Jared. I think Jared Goff is solid. I thought Jared Goff, I actually, when Jared Goff got traded, I thought he got a lot of unwarranted heat.
Do you think that Dak Prescott can win a Super Bowl?
I think Dak is, you know what? With the right structure, Dak possibly can. Dak had a top 5 offense for 3 years in a row with limited weapons. I like Dak. With the right pieces around him, yes, he's capable of going on a run, but you got to have, things have to be almost perfect, right?
Of course.
In the NFL, it's never going to be perfect, but you got to have a second wide receiver.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a second wide receiver. He doesn't have a third wide receiver. They lost Schultz, the tight end. He has no running game whatsoever, but he did lead a top 5 offense in the regular season, but when you got Mike McCarthy as your head coach, I don't think he can win a Super Bowl with that head coach.
Well, and also,
can you flip the head coach? Head coach matters too in this equation.
I know, but Dak also has thrown up all over himself in the first half of every playoff loss that they've had.
Again, they took the Niners to the brink in a playoff game.
No. And he also threw
a lot of them, but I also don't think he can win with Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. I think that's also baked into it. I know Brock Purdy has Kyle Shanahan. I think they're capable of winning the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell, I like Dan Campbell. I think he's a riverboat gambler, no doubt about it. But you know what? They can win up there in Detroit. Now, this year, I think their defense is too damn decimated. I don't think they're going to go far in the playoffs because of that. But Niner fans, you could be New York Giants fans. It's a lot worse out there. Go watch them play football every single Sunday or Saturday or Monday. It's nasty out there. But the question was, before we got Evan Barnes on, do you believe you can still win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy? Do you still believe this guy is hit?
Can we acknowledge this? If I removed Brock Purdy from the equation, or any quarterback from the equation, building a Super Bowl roster is really hard. It just is. I've watched Aaron Rodgers, who I believe to be one of the greatest talents in terms of just the physical ability and mind to play the position. He got to 1 Super Bowl. And many of it did fall on his shoulders, but also there were things outside of his control. It's really difficult to build a Super Bowl roster. Now, is Brock a good quarterback? I think he is a really good quarterback. Now, the hard part is he's got to stay upright. He's got to play good ball, and he's got to utilize all the weapons around him, and you got to have good weapons around him. And it's just, man, it's so hard to get there. It's just so hard to get there.
Why do you think the conversation is just, you mentioned it, and I trust me, I subscribe to that. I subscribe to that. That's why it's so funny to me when people say, well, Shanahan couldn't win a Super Bowl with this roster. Who the hell do you think built the roster? Shanahan and Lynch. They built this roster to a bully, brick by brick. Remember, brick by brick, what we said back in 2017. They're going to build it brick by brick. And they did.
Well, and some teams can come up and be a one-hit wonder. It's hard to reinvent yourself on the fly over a 5-year period, which is what they've done. And because they've done that, I am more encouraged that they can do it again. And I just look at their recent draft class. They did hit on a guard, which they've failed to do over the last couple of years. They did hit on a couple of these secondary players that I really like. We'll see about wide receiver. I think you can overcome, even if Ricky Pearsall doesn't end up being a stud, I think you can overcome that because they've missed on wide receivers in years past. And I'm still giving them a pass for everything that's happened this year. The consistency at head coach, GM, in the quarterback position gives you such a leg up on about half the league.
No doubt.
It's just, half the league is going to be incompetent at head coach, quarterback, and GM. And so you could just write them off before the season's even started.
All right, you are listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and AC1 San Francisco, and Odyssey Sports Station, always live on the free Odyssey app. Let's go to Jose in Oakland, and we'll get to Lucky in the city. Jose, what's happening?
Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Jose.
Joe, let me ask a quick question. Okay, given the current situation, you're going to have about 4 or 5 teams looking for the quarterback next year, correct?
Yeah, could be more.
Okay, let's say the only 2 viable options on the market are Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold. If you were the general manager, who would you pick based on their history, based on what they've done in the past?
Well, if it's me, I'm very what does it cost me? So to go get Sam Darnold, is he a free agent? Then I'm just surrendering lots and lots of money. If it's Brock Purdy, he's under contract. I have to surrender lots of money and draft capital. So it would be easier to acquire a Sam Darnold. Who do I believe in as a quarterback more? I'm going to lean Brock Purdy still over Sam Darnold, though he's had a monster year this year. I think Brock's body of work has been a little better, and I don't think it's close to Sam Darnold's.
Okay, well, you know what? Based on what you say at first, I would say you're a bad manager because then you're thinking about money and not about winning. Okay, now if you're thinking about winning, Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft, and he's been good since game 1 when he played against the Dolphins. Sam Darnold was the first pick, and he's been on about 3-4 different teams. How many of those teams has he taken to the playoffs? This is the first year that he's in a team where, like you said, everything has to go right, and he has all the pieces in place for him to win. Okay, so given what I've seen, I would take Brock Purdy over Sam Darnold any time of the year. Now, as far as the cost being 55 to 60 million, we're going to fall again into the same issue that we felt with Brandon Ayuk. I'm guilty of it. I said I wouldn't pay Ayuk $28 million. I mean, 26 as much if he wants to. If we play that game and the team ended up paying, $30 million a year, I can almost guarantee you next year a capable backup is going to cost you between 55 and 60 million because the market is not going down. These guys are going to be asking for more money. Why? Because you don't have too many quarterbacks out there, too many capable quarterbacks out there. Would you pay Brock Purdy backup money even though he's a starter? No, obviously his agent is going to be asking for starters money. I would say 55 to 60 million. Sounds like a lot of money. Granted, it's not my money. What I would pay Brock Purdy because he has shown me that when he has enough protection, which the team failed to give him last year, and if he had that protection, we would have won the Super Bowl because Chris Young, he just came like there was, it was an open door for him to block that pass.
Hey, Jose, that's one of your best calls ever. Now, we may not agree with everything you just said, but that's one of your best calls ever. You came in with the point, with the question. You had some facts behind it. I'm not mad at Jose in that call. And he's right. The market may say he's 55, 60 million. Now, is there another team that will pay him? After watching Desmond Ridder, are we sure the Raiders would pay Brock Purdy 55 to 60 if they failed out of say if the Raiders didn't get the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 pick, and they win a game. They slip up and win a game here, and they get the 6th pick. We sure the Raiders won't pay him $50 million a year if The Niners said, hey.
The division matters. I'm sorry. I'm not paying Brock Purdy that much money when I have Patrick Mahomes and I have Justin Herbert in that division.
Well, and also, what are you surrendering in draft capital, right? Like, I know we want to like remove a lot of those elements, but I do believe when these front offices are making those decisions, as we saw in the New York Giants offseason, like all these things, they do matter, right? Like you're juggling the salaries, you're juggling your draft picks. Everyone starts with the same amount of salary cap and the same amount of draft picks. It's how you want to utilize them. So I can't speak on everyone's behalf, but if the Raiders are pressed between trading up in that scenario or trading for someone and surrendering capital, I can't say what they would do. I don't even know who their coach is going to be.
Yeah, I don't either. Lucky in San Francisco, real quick before the break. Lucky, what's happening?
Top of the morning, fellas. I know I have to say this, man. I'm questioning all these 49er fandoms, including my favorite, tag team partner, Joe Chasky. Are you really saying that you want to get rid of Brock Purdy for Sam Darnold?
No.
Have you forgot the history of Sam Darnold?
I don't think I said that, though. I mean, it's about cost analysis. I like Brock better than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's done it for 1 year. I feel like Purdy's been good to great for multiple years.
He had one bad year, Joe. One bad year, brother. The world is not falling to all you 49er fans who are saying trade Brock Purdy for Kurt Thuggins and Sam Darnold. Are you crazy? You might as well go and be a Dallas Cowboy or Seahawks fan right now.
Lucky coming in with the heat. Lucky, you coming in with the heat. Tell him, Lucky. Get off my quarterback.
Bonte, this is coming from them tall projects, man. Back in the day, we used to play with the OGs on the black
the 12-story jets. Yeah, I didn't walk by the 12-story jets, Lucky.
12-story jets, man.
Yeah, I didn't walk by the 12-story jets. Some of the only projects I was really petrified of. I didn't play no games in those heat projects, man.
Come on, man. I was a little tight, man, running around there with all them cats, man, just seeing it all. But I'm serious, man. My 49er love is in my bloodstream. People, please don't disrespect our team. We need O-line, D-line, and some better backups. That's it, and Kyle needs to adjust his game plan so we can win a bowl, please.
So, like, let's remove quarterback.
I like that. Jose Lucky, man. Wow, back-to-back.
Think about what they did with their defensive line and Nick Bosa. Like, Nick Bosa had a pretty spectacular resume that he was negotiating on. Felt like he had a lot of leverage. And it went down to the very end. And maybe the Niners adjust how they do business with Brock Purdy because it's the quarterback or because of some of the things that have happened over the last 2 off seasons. Maybe they adjust. But they play hardball. That's kind of Parag's way of doing business. Now, I don't love it. I feel like it's had a depreciating effect on the roster.
They didn't play hardball with Christian McCaffrey.
Well,
we don't talk about that enough.
I also
that burned them just as bad as the Ayuk deal so far. And actually, Ayuk played in more games than Chris McCaffrey this season.
But I also don't think that he was as public as those other two guys.
He wasn't.
Bosa, we kind of knew from the jump that he was going to be all about the money. And so I know how this organization operates. And what's happening right now is kind of not new. But my point was that, like, when they spent all that money on Nick Bosa, they kind of were like, hey, Nick, like, we can only afford so much on that defensive line. It's up to you to kind of, like, make things happen. And I would say you can't do that with the quarterback.
Well,
you can't just say, hey, we're paying you whatever the money is. Like, figure it out. Like, no, you still have to surround that guy with the right infrastructure.
Well, we don't talk about that enough. Everybody's so hyper-focused on Debo and Trent and Ayuk. You brought up Nick Bosa. Has he lived up to his contract?
Not even close.
Not even close.
Actually, there's some sound I'd like to play where we talked about, where I told you, when you make the most in the franchise, there is a way that you have to conduct yourself, even if it's out of your nature, because when I pay you top general dollar, you need to conduct yourself like a general. And he said something that really, it didn't sit well with me.
Bosa said a few things this year that hasn't sat well with a lot of people.
I'm probably one of the bigger Nick Bosa fans out there and have been for a long time. When you pay a guy $125 million and you're the highest defensive paid player in the NFL in terms of guaranteed money, I'm not asking you to be someone you're not, right? Fred Warner is just a different person in terms of his wiring and his leadership than Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is going to be more lead by example guy. But there are seminal moments for a team in a season, in a career, where I do want a guy who's maybe a little more soft-spoken to speak up and be a leader. And Nick Bosa said something yesterday that it really bugged me. Well, as much as the play on the field has bugged me the last 2 years, as much as the throwing of Steve Wilkes under the bus last year bugged me, this one was come on, man. Well, you're one of the leaders on this team, and I think you actually saying something at this moment in time let's true leadership.
Well, let's bring it back to Thursday night, because Devondre Campbell, which is the hypocrisy in what he said yesterday, is alarming, because Thursday night, this is what Bosa said about Campbell.
I didn't know till now, but until I know more about the situation, I'm not going to talk about it.
So he didn't want to talk about it Thursday, didn't know much about the situation. So then he was asked about the situation yesterday, as you just alluded to, Shasky, and here's what Bosa had to say.
I actually did. In the locker room before the game, I heard some complaining, and I was going to say something, didn't, because I didn't want to create more of a distraction, but kind of felt it. And so, I kind of saw the foreshadowing, and I definitely didn't think it was going to result in that. Didn't know it happened during the game, but...
Do you regret not saying anything now?
Not really. No. If he was going to do that, then he's not the type of guy to be here.
So there's a couple things here. One, Thursday you wouldn't talk about it. You said you didn't know much about the situation. Yesterday you allude to, I heard him complaining before the game as he was getting dressed up, and I thought to say something and I didn't. You're one of the 6 captains on this football team. You have the C on your chest. You've been here since 2019. All right, 2019. And the fact that you saw him complaining and other guys complaining about roles, your job as a captain and as a leader, Fred Warner would have heard it. Hey, lock in, guys. Let's go. It's a big game. Our season's on the line. Let's go. Let's go. The fact that you decided, I'm not going to really say anything. I'm just going to let these guys complain about their roles. That's not leadership to me. That's worried about yourself and doing your own deal. So I've had complaints about Nick Bosa before. You know, the way he threw Steve Wilkes under the bus last season, which the head coach, as JC in Sacramento once told us, he kind of allowed it to happen. And I thought it was, I was probably the only host at the station irate over that, about Bosa throwing the defensive coordinator, because Fred Warner kind of said some things too. And I was like, really? We're going to do this to Steve Wilkes? He ain't the problem. Hey, we found out he wasn't the problem. But Bosa saying what he said yesterday, I mean, this is just who he is.
Yeah, but
we're going to learn that this is who he is.
Okay. This is unbecoming of a 49er leader. And I'm just being real. If Ronnie Lott heard that in the locker room,
he would have checked him. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, my God.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, give me a break. Could you imagine doing this to Ken Norton, Bryant Young, Patrick Willis? I'm just trying to think, Dante Whitner? You think Dante Whitner, who talks on air all the time on television, whatnot, and he was a Niner for a short period of time. He wasn't a lifer, but I consider him a guy who held the Niners to a certain standard. To me, this is very simple. Come on, man. Do you just work here, or are you one of the foundational pieces?
No, he just works here.
Well, that's unbecoming of a guy getting paid the amount of money that he's getting paid. And we could argue
Are you really surprised?
Yeah, I am.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
Why are you surprised?
Because when I give you I don't expect you day one to walk in, and not everyone's wired that way, B. Some guys are just kind of I go about my business. Steph Curry, for example. I don't think he's a rah-rah, rally the troops. I actually think he's more understated than anything. But he shows his leadership in various forms, and I do believe as he's gotten older and as he's matured and as he's created more status in the league, he's found his appropriate voice, right? Not everyone can be a leader. Nick, I gave you you bent this team over for the extra 10, 20 million bucks, whatever it was. You waited till the last second to come in. You came in, you made excuses on why you weren't prepared, and the team finished and started off really well, but you were complaining about it all year last year.
All year long. He made excuses. Yeah, I've been experimenting. Mr. Trady can't really hurt. When his mom came on the station, told Willard and Dibbs, he's ready to roll. He's ready to roll.
And when I watch his contemporaries, I think about TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. The situations those guys have been in. Have you ever heard anything like this?
No, absolutely not.
And then I think of a guy like Aaron Donald, who you want to be in the breadth of an Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great defensive linemen. Nick, I couldn't even think of him having these types of conversations in the locker room. This is I'm being real. And it really bugs me because when you are given that kind of money, yes, there are seminal moments where I do expect you to say something. Because the guy who cries wolf every single week, maybe it doesn't hit as hard as you talking once every 12 or 13 weeks in the locker room, if you're a quiet guy, it does resonate. It does. And it ticks me off. That's the attitude of a guy. I just work here, man. That's what it feels like to me.
Exactly. That's Bosa for you.
It really ticked me off when I heard that.
Let's go to Jaime in San Carlos. Jaime, real quick. We're going to get to a couple calls before Baldy here and squeeze you guys in. Jaime, what's up, man? Good morning.
Season on the line, D.
What's up? What's up, guys?
What's up, man?
All right, so a few things. You guys are talking about, the Niners and all this. You think the old regime, the old owner would let this happen? Eddie D would have Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat in a heartbeat. He almost fired Bill Walsh 3 times. Okay? And then the second thing, Brock Purdy. If you guys are going to pay, if we as a team are going to pay them $55 to $60 million, we are in trouble. If I'm the Niners, I go to the Bengals and say, hey, Burrow is out there. How about 3 number 1 picks and Purdy?
I'll never trade Burrow. That Burrow's their guy, dude. He's from the state of Ohio. They're never trading.
When does that crack come into play?
You could offer them 25 first-round picks, and I don't think they're trading.
That's not trading Burrow.
Yeah.
Rich in Washington, D.C. Rich, what's up?
Hey, this is Rich Brady from Washington, D.C. I was born and raised in Richmond, California. I'm a 49er fan for life. Quickly, I wanted to touch on the Brock Purdy situation. Everybody has this knee-jerk reaction. He did just have one of the worst starts of his career. But I just had to go look at the whole career. The 2 years that he's been here, he's 20, he's young. He has 8,000 yards. He has 59 touchdowns, 24 picks, and a 105.9 quarterback rating. You take Brock Purdy's name off of that. I mean, the going rate for quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence has got 50-something million, dude. You know what I'm saying? Trevor Lawrence was nowhere near the quarterback I feel Brock Purdy is. Yeah, but that's bad money.
Right. Would you agree to me, the minute that deal was signed, I'm not saying that I wouldn't pay Brock.
But we'll see if it's bad money. We'll see. It's 1 year into the deal.
It is.
1 year into
As
the
of right
deal.
now, given what he's accomplished, it's bad money.
I get what Jacksonville's doing, though. They don't. A lot of free agent quarterbacks are just not going to go to Jacksonville. Anyway, real quick, let's go to RJ Fairfield. Then we'll get to Jim Satterfield before ball game. What up, RJ?
You cannot win with Brock Purdy, man. Kyle Shanahan's play calling plays to Purdy's strength. And that's why Jerry Rice said everything is congested because Brock Purdy cannot spread the ball. That's why everybody wants Sam Darnold, because we can have an actual offense where we can spread out and receivers could do their thing.
RJ, they are 28. They are 28-12 in games that Brock Purdy has started, including the playoffs and Super Bowl.
Merry Christmas, Chasky. I gotta go.
Hey, RJ, how that Sacramento game?
Win with them.
How that Sacramento game end up last night?
12.
Hey, RJ, how does Sacramento end up last night against the Denver Nuggets? Real quick, Jim and Sarah fell. Oh, Draper. Oh, I was texting with him yesterday. The Kings lost the game. They had a 6-point lead with
I'm in no position.
They had an 8-point lead with 2 minutes left, and they blew it.
The season ends today. They're out of the offs.
Hey, the Sacramento Kings got on 21 points in the last 4 minutes of that game.
I think there's 2 games separating the 5th seed and the 12th seed right now in the West.
The West.
They can't win with them. They're 28-12. Well, Merry Christmas.
Well, I mean, it's what happens.
28-12 in games he started, including against the best teams in the league in the playoffs and the Super Bowl.
I've been preaching that, and for some reason, Jim Sarafel, what's up?
Hey, guys. So I love everything about Brock Purdy. The one thing that is a complete deal breaker for me is his lack of arm strength. If you notice, he's got no deep threat. Every time we go deep, he underthrows his receivers. You guys notice that? No one's talking about
this year.
We've talked about it a lot.
This year he's done it way more, and that's why
the Kansas City game when he underthrew Jacob Cowing and and George Kittle on the 2 deep routes, it resulted in the field goals instead of touchdowns. So
into this thought process, it's like when people say they want to buy a house, it's like, all right, well, what can you afford, and what are your needs, and where are you at in life, and how many more years do you think you can work, and what's in your retirement plan, and do you have a family, and there's a million questions, and what you might need and what I might need are going to be totally different. We know that what Kyle Shanahan needs at quarterback is someone who's extremely cerebral and can throw the anticipation routes over the middle with deadly accuracy. And Brock's proven he can do those things. There are some limitations in the offense that also kind of highlight some of his limitations, throwing beyond the numbers and things like that. But to me, the bigger thing was just the overall arching Baldy being down on Brock. This is someone who has been so high on Brock Purdy for so long. And not that it validates how people feel, but it's like, all right, well, then I'm trusting my eyes because my eyes are telling me he doesn't look like quite the same player for a variety of reasons. Deteriorating talent, confidence, the shoulder, which he referenced, might be an issue because clearly the ball's not coming out the same way. It's just he doesn't look like the same guy. And that presents its own alarming issues.
He's kind of down on him going to I think signs of Baldy not drinking the Brock Purdy Kool-Aid because he has loved Brock Purdy. But the signs of Brock Purdy and Baldy kind of wavering on him was the beginning of the Baltimore game or the week of the Baltimore game. And you were out that week. And Spadoni asked him, do you think he's the MVP? And Baldy said, well, I got to wait. I have to wait to see what he looks like against Baltimore. And he looked like crap against Baltimore. There's no denying it. He looked awful. That was his worst game probably as a professional quarterback. Now, going into this season, I have a hard time saying Brock Purdy's been garbage or this and that because context matters to me. And I understand football is the ultimate team sport. And there's guys in and out of the lineup. But there's no doubt Brock Purdy against Kansas City did not look good. Against Arizona, he was inconsistent. Against Seattle, obviously to make a throw on 2nd and 11 to seal the game. He didn't make it. He airmailed it. Last week against the Rams, it's the worst I've seen him since the Baltimore game in that LA Rams game. But to flip him over Sam Darnold, let's pause for a second on that. Let's get into that because Sam Darnold was just in the building for a year. And I remember the dialogue because I didn't watch the last game of the season. There was a Warriors game the day of the LA Rams-Niners game to end the season. Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold. And I was like, I'm not going back to watch that. I'm getting ready for the bye week, getting ready for the playoffs. I was like, I went through it a little bit, but kind of casually, and I was like, whatever. I'm not going to have any real assessments on that. Backups are playing. Guys are in and out of the lineup. Whatever. Darnold's cool. I've seen enough of Darnold. But the rhetoric after that game was, oh, my God, Sam Darnold's terrible. Oh, my God, Sam Darnold, are you kidding me? Oh, my God, we're in trouble if Sam Darnold plays.
Well, he had multiple opportunities at the end of the game to put together a drive, and Carson Wentz put together a drive at the end of the game, and Darnold kind of fell apart.
No doubt. No doubt. And so now here we are a year later, and Baldy said he would think about flipping Purdy for Darnold. He would think about it because we gave him a chance at the end of the interview because I was stuck on that. I was like, wow, we're out on Purdy just like that? How many people would flip Purdy for Darnold?
Just straight up?
Just don't even think about the money because who knows what the hell Sam Darnold's going to receive? Who knows what Purdy will receive? Sam Darnold's agent is probably thinking, man, when you put Justin Jefferson around him or you put some premium weapons around him, he has the arm to make all the throws. And by the way, how did Darnold look to everybody yesterday?
He looked okay. Is it a cop-out for me to say I really want to see what he looks like in the playoffs?
No, it's not a cop-out because the playoffs will determine a lot. It'll be his first. But see, to me, if he does struggle in the playoffs, I'm not going to say, oh, well, that's the Sam Darnold we all know. Because he's never. No, I didn't say you did. I didn't say you did. I'm just telling you how I'm feeling. If he does struggle in the playoffs, I tend to rate quarterbacks, okay, it's their first postseason. It's tougher. You're playing against great defenses. You've never been in that moment before. It is just different. That's why NBA teams, for the most part, when see them, it's rare that you see an NBA team come out of nowhere and just win an NBA championship. It's usually a process to it, right? You lose in the first round, you lose in the conference final, you lose in the second round, then finally you win a championship. We've seen it with all the greats, whether it's Michael, whether it's LeBron, whether it's Steph, KD. There's a process to winning the ultimate prize because you just haven't been there before. And that happens. So, me personally, it's going to be tough for me to say, man, Sam Darnold sucks. What does it look like? Does he just completely crap the bed in a playoff game? Because the playoffs are a different beast.
Yeah, but for me, the NBA, the margin of error for the better team is just so much wider in a 7-game series. In these one-offs, and Dan Campbell alluded to this last year on the podium after losing to the Niners, like, nothing is guaranteed in the NFL.
No doubt.
These one-game scenarios where the margins are so razor thin and the bodies break down so quickly, anything can happen.
No, anything can happen, but you get what I'm saying? No, that first go-round is tough for quarterbacks.
But if he throws 5 picks in the first 3 quarters of the game,
Eli threw 5 picks in a wild card game. Minnesota Vikings, remember that?
Yeah, I also remember him putting together 2 of one of the greatest playoff runs ever.
After the fact.
Yeah.
After the fact. Again, his first go-round, look at Eli's numbers in his first go-round. He threw 5 picks in a wild card game.
But you're asking me but you're not asking about a body of work for a career. Right. You're asking me about, in a singular game, who would I trade for? If he looks serviceable
I didn't even ask that question. You asked, what does it look like in the playoffs? And I said, well, he may struggle in the playoffs. I don't think I want to come to a sweeping judgment.
Okay, but if he completely implodes, then I'm looking at him because it's about getting back to the playoffs.
Did you look at Eli different after the 5 interceptions when he threw it to Minnesota?
I was never high on Eli, and he completely turned me, around after beating the Niners in the rain.
You could completely flip it. Peyton Manning, his first go-round in the playoffs.
But you're asking about next year, and so that's why I'm focused on not body of work, not careers, not 20-year runways. I'm next year. So if he looks completely terrible in a playoff game, I'm now I'm going back to Brock, and I know it's a 1-game sample that I'm basing this off of, but there's not a lot to go off of Sam Darnold. He has 1 year of excellence. He has 50 games of being very mediocre and subpar. And so I'm making a rash decision based off of 1 game. I'm putting a lot into that game.
How about this though? Because the same argument I'm making for Purdy is boy, you don't have Ayuk, your offensive line's a joke. You don't have McCaffrey, you don't have Mason. Can't we look at Sam Darnold the same way, say, boy, he was a New York Jet, and that organization was an absolute disaster. And who was he throwing to? Can we name a receiver with the New York Jets that he threw to?
No, but we're doing career year stuff here. He's had a career year.
But I'm thinking into the fact that
I know what's baked in.
But no, maybe it's not a career, and maybe this is who Sam Darnold is. Maybe he wasn't Sam Darnold, the real Sam Darnold, because he was in New York with the bad organization, with the bad offensive line, with the bad running game, with the bad running game or whatnot. I think Sam Darnold could be good.
So are you doing a deal?
I don't know if I'm doing a deal or not. I have no idea. I have no idea if I want to do that deal or not.
Well, then what would make you want to do that deal?
But I didn't say I wanted to do the deal. Nothing would make me want to do the deal. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea at this moment. All I'm just we're having a conversation here about quarterbacks going to the playoffs, body of work, what does it look around him? He goes to Carolina. He got his job taken in Carolina by Baker. He got his job taken. So we've seen a lot more bad with Darnold, but also I sit back and say, you know what? The situation wasn't the greatest. All right? The coaching was terrible. The defense was terrible. The offensive line, there's all these baked-in equations. So that's why it's tough for me to say that's why there's the golden 4 who can really lead a team, and everybody else is just in this spot to where you need things around them to function at a high level.
There's an argument, and I wouldn't be one to make it completely because I think it depends on your circumstance, but there is an argument to say, I'm only paying those top 5 guys and no one else. And it's an interesting concept. I think it's rife with unknown, and you could hit the lottery with a Desmond Ridder like we watched last night and just be get everyone fired, Right. You could conceivably bounce around and sign a Geno Smith and be stable for the time being, but I think those have ceilings. So because I think we need to come down this. If you're asking me Brock or Darnold, even if he has a singular great playoff game, I'm probably still going Brock Purdy. I'm probably still going Brock Purdy because to me there is something to be said about doing it over multiple years and being, good for multiple years.
Obviously, the Niners have always been intrigued with Sam Darnold. There was multiple rumors about the Niners traded for Sam Darnold from the New York Jets. It never happened. So when Sam Darnold did come here, there was a lot of people high on that. I was like, boy, can Sam Darnold actually take this job? Can Sam Darnold do this and do that? And a couple training camp practices, I saw Sam Darnold. I was like, wow. I remember Ludman after one training camp practice walked up to me, who do you think was the best quarterback on the field? I asked him first, and he got Trey Lance. I said, no, Sam Darnold was the best quarterback on the field. It wasn't even close to me. He threw an out route to Brendan Ayuk. I was like, wow. But at the same time, Brock has put in the body of work, but he also has had the better resources around him. Now, you asked in the playoff game, can you reserve jump into the playoff game? I'll throw a hypothetical out. What if he throws 3 interceptions? What does the 3 interceptions look like?
Well, I think the 3 interceptions diminishes his value, which to me means maybe he could be had for cheaper.
But those interceptions could come off of a deflected pass.
Well,
it could come off of a receiver running the wrong route. It could come off a receiver slipping. So so that's why in football,
but this is where
I think context matters so much. It's not just, he threw 5 picks, let's fire him. You know what I mean? Oh, he's not good enough. Because I'm sure a lot of people in New York said that about Eli. Next thing you know, he wins 2 Super Bowls.
I have a hard time thinking Darnold will evolve into Rich Gannon later in a career. But, other things have happened. I thought Baker's career was over. But, this is where you tell me to, remove the money. No. All of these evaluations for the guys that aren't in tier 1, I have to evaluate the money.
So paying Purdy, I'll throw this hypothetical at you then since you want to play this game. Purdy, $30 million, Darnold, $20.
Well, do I have to trade for Darnold? Well, no, but this is part of it.
Darnold's going to be a free agent.
Part of it.
Darnold's going to be a free agent. He's going to be a free agent.
He's going to be a free agent, and I can sign him. And could I flip Purdy?
He's going to be a free agent.
Would go.
He's on a 1-year deal.
Then I would, again, and I can flip Purdy in this situation. Then I probably, if those were the options, but I don't think Purdy's signing for 30. It's probably more likely Purdy is looking for 45, 50 million, and Darnold's looking for 30, 35 million. And if they franchise tag Darnold, now I have to trade for Darnold. And I'm not surrendering draft capital and paying him the money currently. I'd rather just pay Brock and stay the course.
The only way you have to give draft capital for Sam Darnold is if Minnesota franchises him. Yeah, that's it. And I don't think they're going to franchise him and pay him all that money, because then I think another team will back off and say, yeah, I'm good.
But I keep coming back to, and this is where I don't think there are a lot of suitors for Brock. Not that they wouldn't trade for him. I just don't think there are a lot of teams surrendering high capital and giving him the amount of money that he's looking for. When Jalen Ramsey was going to get traded, the Rams were like, we'll give you 2 firsts and we'll pay him a boatload of money. When Khalil Mack was available, we'll give you multiple firsts and we'll pay you a boatload of money. I don't know how many teams have $50 million ready to go for Brock Purdy and are willing to surrender multiple 2s in a 1 or multiple 1s in a 4th or something like that. I don't know.
Let me ask you this. Do you want Brock Purdy to be your quarterback next season?
For next year, yes. But I also want them to bring in some stuff behind him, because that's how the league is right now. And I don't view him as a surefire lock right now.
So Sam Darnold, which is insane, because last year he got the 1-year, $9 million deal. $9 million.
When the Niners signed him, couldn't you say, Darnold, that is, his value was probably at its lowest?
It was probably at its lowest. It was at its lowest.
Okay. Now, could you also say it's probably at its highest right now if he was a stock?
It is. And this is why, if it's not Shanahan going after Sam Darnold, and look, I want to make it clear, I, Bonta Hill, do not want to move off of Brock Purdy before somebody aggregates me, eclipses me. I do not want to move off of Brock Purdy. With that said, if Sam Darnold doesn't have Kevin O'Connell and Kyle Shanahan, what does it look like? What does Sam Darnold look like with Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson calling the plays in Atlanta? I don't know if he looks this good. Does he? And by the way, he's thrown to one of the best wide receivers in pro football, Justin Jefferson. That helps tremendously. Oh, that helps tremendously. He's got Aaron Jones in the backfield.
He dropped the ball in the red zone yesterday. I thought could have been a walk-in touchdown.
So he's got that going for him. What does it look like with the Las Vegas Raiders? What does it look like with the Cleveland Browns? So it's just situation, too. Situations matter. And Brock Purdy's in a great situation. Now, Sam Darnold does know about this situation. How does he view this situation now? Would he want to leave Minnesota? I don't even know if we want to leave Minnesota. Maybe he wants to compete with J.J. McCarthy. Maybe that team says, no, we need to keep Darnold. The veterans in there say, no, we got to keep this guy. He's it, especially if he plays well in the playoffs. Boy, flipping Purdy for Sam Darnold. How many Niner fans would entertain that?
It's interesting because I agree with you right now.
888-957-9570.
The highest his stock is, Sam Darnold, is probably right now. Close to it, right? Maybe before he came out in the draft, it was higher, but it feels like his stock is at an all-time high. Purdy's stock is pretty much at its lowest, right? I think league-wide, fan-wise, and even then, we're splitting hairs, and it's a tough decision for some people, right? So it's an interesting exercise, and that's why I do think all these games matter on Purdy's side. Even though they feel mathematically eliminated, these last 3 games are big. I feel like all these games are huge for Sam Darnold. Every pass is millions of dollars in one direction or the other. Let me ask you this.
Gosh. Let me ask you this.
I wonder what Shanahan's thinking. That's what I think.
888-957-9570. Did the Niners improve with Sam Darnold at quarterback over Brock Purdy? How much improvement? How much better at the quarterback position are they if Sam Darnold is taking snaps under center? Because, again, what if the defense is the same? This defense has taken a step back. Sam Darnold has a great defense in Minnesota, so he doesn't have to do everything. In a way, They asked Sam Darnold to do what Kyle Shanahan asked Brock Purdy to do. Don't lose the game.
Well, one thing when I look at when it comes to ball security is like, are you an explosive playmaker? Do you give me a ton of points and big explosion plays? And right now, like the thing that Purdy hung his hat on, not only did he give you explosion plays, but he limited the turnovers. And I've referenced it over 50 combined touchdowns and 17 turnovers in his first 25 games. But since then, it's been the reverse, 22 turnovers and only 20 touchdowns. And so I'm not getting the big pop plays. I'm not getting the ball security. And so it looks really bad these last 18 games. Is that the aberration? And the other stuff is really who he is? Or is it somewhere in the middle?
Right.
And I probably would say it's probably somewhere in the middle. And like I'm looking at Sam Darnold right now. He's giving you big explosion plays.
Well, that's the one thing after the Rams game. I mentioned to you, I said, the deep ball, he will throw that deep ball. And we saw that week 3. Or was it week 2?
Yeah.
When the Niners took out the Vikings, he hit Justin Jefferson for that 97, 98-yarder. So he does take the top off the defense, no doubt about it. But he's a gunslinger as well.
I mean, he'll throw you the boneheaded red zone interception like he did to Fred Warner in that early season game. He'll have those turnovers, but he kind of makes up, at least this year, he's made up for it with the big explosion plays. And it's like, that's the area for me that's the most concerning with the Niners this year. And I go back to, I do think something's up with the arm. Not only do they not have the person on the outside, but they've had guys with 3, 4, 5 steps, and Brock has just flat out underthrown him.
Yes.
And that's the part that's really alarming for me. It's like, man, is the body starting to give out? Is it just a one-off where he's hurt? Because I saw Jimmy Garoppolo never get right physically. And then it affected his psyche, it affected his confidence, his discernment, and then it just never got right. Sometimes that happens with guys.
I would have an issue in this sense. If they did entertain this, Darnold, and moved off of Purdy. It's the same way I felt after 2019 with Shanahan. And this goes back to Kyle Shanahan. If you don't like the quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, your actions are telling us that you're kind of down on Jimmy, then why not go get your guy? And he had a chance. He told Brady no. He told Tom Brady flat out, no, I'm going to stick with Jimmy. Yeah, you're going to stick with Jimmy, which is that crazy, right? That. Which is crazy. And he stuck with Jimmy for a few more years. Then, he makes the trade for Trey Lance, basically telling everybody that Jimmy's not his guy. And then next thing you know, we got Jimmy on the baby field throwing passes because you don't want to trade him. So you're like, oh, well, we still have a good quarterback in the building. We have a great quarterback room, blah, 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 blah. Right? Right? But then it's
all real. This is all real.
Now fast forward to 2025. We have 3 games left. You mean to tell me that they're going to flip Purdy for Darnold if they did decide to do that? Coming off of that Super Bowl where you thought, and you said it to me like, man, that was the difference between great and good. And Mahomes is great and Purdy's good. But you mean to tell me coming off of that Super Bowl in which you thought Purdy maybe could have played better? I'm talking about Kyle Shanahan here. Why not just say, you know what? We know we're going to have to entertain contract conversations with Brock Purdy a year after next. Let's just move on to Darnold now. We know what we have because we've seen what we've seen on the practice field. We've seen all the drills. We've seen the way he throws a football. Matt Mayoko comes to mind where he says, boy, he's got the strongest arm I've ever seen in Santa Clara. Stronger than Steve Young, stronger than all these guys. Like, just the most impressive throwing arm.
You know why? And this goes because of the money. Like, Brock was making $1 million. And they had 1 million guys with their hands out that they had to pay. So you thought you could run it back one more year, pay all the quote-unquote Avengers, and have the quarterback making $1 million. Like, I know we want to remove the money, but I really believe the way that this team operates has been, it's very much like, are you a good football player and how much do you make? Like, it is very methodical in terms of price point. And that's how they make a lot of their decisions, is because of the price point.
Let's go to Uncle Gene. Uncle Gene, what's happening?
Hey, fellas. I've always loved Baldy. I love him more than ever now because, and this is going to surprise you, I totally agree with him with one reservation about looking seriously at Darnold. I'd want to see how Darnold looks the rest of the year, particularly going in the playoffs, see how well he does, see if he's got that, competitive gene, in the tightest of situations, how well he does. But if Brock Purdy is going to demand $60 million plus a year, and this gets back to the points you keep making, Joe, then you're going to severely limit what you can put around him. And Brock, it comes to the question of can he win? Of course he can win. He showed it last year, showed it the year before, but he had a cavalcade of stars around him. And that's what he's going to need to get to and win a Super Bowl. And if you give him 60 or 70 million a year, that you're not going to have enough to pay enough quality players, would be my fear. So, yeah, I would be open to the idea. I mean, if you could get a Sam Darnold for 30 or 40 million and he takes you deep into the playoffs this year, you know, and he's got the physical skills and the size
I'm
that
surprised
Brock is never going to have.
How much better is Sam Darnold than Brock Purdy? How much would you improve at the quarterback position?
Well, I think that still remains to be seen. But what he's shown this year, you put what he needs around him. He's got a great arm. He seems to be seeing the field. He's operating very effectively. I don't know. But I'm
so
afraid.
We don't know. Hold on, Uncle Gene. Uncle Gene, we don't know how he would look, but we'd be willing to take a chance on an unknown, other than a known commodity we've seen within this offense in Brock Purdy.
All right, but here's what I'm concerned about, particularly after that last game of Purdy's. As you said before, Bonte last week, he said, quarterback's got to be able to play in the elements, and he has some serious issues with that. Okay, both quarterbacks struggled in the first half, but Stafford did fine in the second, while Purdy still struggled. Now, maybe he's got an arm problem, but then Baldy said, hey, maybe it's a chronic problem. We don't know. So there's a big question mark there. And then making that horrible decision that basically ended the season to throw that interception, I don't know, man. I'm starting to have some questions about that.
How did Sam Darnold? Thanks for the call, Uncle Gene. How did Sam Darnold do in New York City in the elements of MetLife? I'm just throwing it out loud, kind of just like not asking you specifically. I didn't watch a lot of Jets football.
Me neither.
I mean, I knew what Sam Darnold was. It watched a lot of them at USC. I saw him in the Pac-12 championship game, for crying out loud, and he beat Stanford in the Pac-12 championship game. But even in that game, he drove you crazy. He throw a bad pick or he throw a bad pass. So you know, out of the back of his own end zone, he'll throw a bomb. You're like, wow, look at that arm. I wonder how he did in the elements in New York City. How did he do in the elements in Carolina? Because it does get cold out there. And if we're talking about Brock and weather games, well, how does Darnold look at weather games? Right now, it does benefit him. He's playing in the dome. And he may see the great thing about Darnold this year, he's in a great spot. Because if Minnesota wins out, they're going to clinch home field advantage, which means he doesn't have to play in the elements.
Well, he wouldn't even if they went to Detroit.
If they went to the Super Bowl, it's in New Orleans in the Superdome. So he wouldn't even have to play outdoors.
Well, just for him.
So,
I mean, I wish it was us. But
I'm just saying, so we won't even find out if he can play. Because I'd be interested to see him go to Philadelphia or something.
I mean, look, if the guy has like 3 consecutive fourth quarter comebacks where he's, in shotgun 4 wide the whole time, slinging it down, like he can win everyone over, like that's why it's called sports, no one expects these certain things. But
all right.
I keep coming back to like one of the seminal moments of this organization and this regime in this organization was when they made the financial and football decision. We can't afford DeForest Buckner at that price point, but we can get back a first-round pick, and we can keep Eric Armstead, and we can keep Jimmy Ward. And like that's how they viewed that whole transaction. It wasn't, hey, is DeForest really good? Hell yeah, he's really good. But he's asking for an amount of money that would sacrifice us 3 players because we can get a pick and we can get these 2 other guys under contract. And I just think that's how they operate across the roster. And I don't think it's as cut and dry as, is Brock Purdy good? Well, yeah, I think they really like Brock Purdy. And I think that they're doing the math in a variety of ways as they're kind of breaking down on the whiteboard what are their options. And I don't think it's a hard truth. Like, I think in their heart of hearts, they'd love to have Brock Purdy play on the $1 million contract that he's on for next year. I just don't see that happening. I don't see how Purdy's camp is like, yeah, go to OTAs on a $1 million contract with a bum elbow and just no guarantees. You just play the year out in the NFL.
Shanahan mentioned that. With Tim Kawakami day before training camp. What does it look like when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract as opposed to paying him $40 billion? Was the rest of the roster. So he hinted at that from day one. From day one, before training camp this season, he discussed that and talked about the financial ramifications of giving a quarterback. But Even Sam Darnold at $40 million. Oh, I gotta scratch my head.
Was there a point in time, like for me, there was like, there's guys that just kind of like shut you up and prove you wrong. And I look at Matt Stafford as an example. I was like, what has he ever done? Like what? Everybody would hype him up in Detroit. And I thought he was just a fantasy, just a fantasy guy that threw up a bunch of hollow numbers. And then I watched him go on that magical run, and I viewed him differently since that. And not that he's done anything real spectacular since the Super Bowl, but that run made me view him in a completely different light. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I feel like, wow, he is a guy that can win you games with his right arm when the chips are up against it and when he doesn't have all his weapons around there. And so, like, you can be won over. Simultaneously, you could play yourself out of money. I watched Joe Flacco just destroy everyone in the playoffs and put together one of the most magical seasons of all time, and then he just lost it and wasn't the same player, and they overpaid for him.
Or maybe that was an outlier, right? Maybe that was the outlier.
Could have been. But this is kind of what
happened. It could have been his Nick Foles story.
What?
It could have been Nick Foles all over again.
I didn't see Nick Foles winning that Super Bowl.
I actually picked Philly to win that game.
Did you? I didn't.
Well, I didn't like the Patriots
blown
defense.
Away.
I didn't like the Patriots defense that year. The Patriots defense was suffering. And their offense was a little limited, even though they scored 40 in that game. I know Brady, but I was looking at that Eagles defense line that day, and I was like, the trenches matter to me. The trenches matter. I look at the trenches first. No matter what the quarterback is, what does the defensive and the offensive lines look like? That's how I pick playoff games.
Remember Malcolm Butler, too? They benched him that game.
They benched him that game as well. I look at that, so playoff games are a little different for me.
Yeah, last year I did Mahomes is playing? Yeah, I'm taking Mahomes. Remember that at the beginning? I said, they're going to represent the AFC, and everyone thought I was crazy.
No, but what I did with Kansas City was overlook their defense. Well, I did not think their defense was that good.
No,
and their defense led them to that Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Like, it was the defense, and that defensive line and that front seven. So churches matter to me, man. Churches matter.